he just one after another deposed people that, were in a position of power until he was the last one. So now he's in charge of he's got the attorneys on his side. He's got all the materials.
What became of that other guy?
Please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
That's
coming from his former brother-in-law.
Yeah. Now, he also had a big falling out with his father, who I think just passed away a couple years ago.
Right.
It was Ron Miscavige,
right? So Ron Miscavige Sr. had 4 children. Ron Miscavige Jr., twins, David and Denise Miscavige, and then another daughter, Lori.
Okay.
So David Miscavige is the leader of Scientology, and Ron became a Sea Org member on the base. He was a trumpet player and ran the band.
Did he originally get his son into it?
Yes. So in 1979, I think. Let's see. Dave was 16. Is 76. So no, even earlier than that. Anyway, when Dave was in school, he had asthma problems, and Ron thought maybe Dianetics could help. And that's why he got them into it initially. And they ended up going to England, and they were learning to become auditors. And Dave was like the phenom, right? He was like the 14-year-old hot shit auditor that was going to be like the next big thing. He eventually ended up in 1978 in the California desert, where Ron Hubbard was making movies, and David had become what's called a messenger, which is one of these young aides to Hubbard. And there's photos where Ron is directing a scene and little David Miscavige is running a camera. He became like the second or third cameraman under Ron. And that proximity to him is how he curried favor, and was eventually in the 80s, when Ron was in hiding and nobody knew where he was, Ron Miscavige. Ron Hubbard had an aide named Pat Broker with him.
When he was in hiding.
David Miscavige was at the base with everybody. Broker and David Miscavige would meet to pass messages between each other in order to keep Hubbard still running Scientology. So because Pat Broker and David Miscavige were the bottleneck, and nobody knew where Hubbard was, that's why they amassed power. Is everyone had to go through those two guys. So when Ron Hubbard died, the big question then was, which of those two guys is going to take over, Pat Broker or David Miscavige? And, supposedly Hubbard favored Pat Broker, but Dave muscled him out of the way. And
how did he do that? I mean, he's not very big.
I mean, people have talked about how people had talked about how, once you can get the power in there and you can make people get punishments, he just one after another deposed people that, were in a position of power until he was the last one. So now he's in charge of he's got the attorneys on his side. He's got all the materials.
What became of that other guy? What was his
That
name
was a
again?
great question. Pat Broker. So Pat and Annie Broker were actually with L. Ron Hubbard in his last years in hiding.
Sorry to hear that.
And as Ron was deteriorating and kind of going, losing his mind.
Could you imagine that guy losing his mind? Like he just spent a lifetime losing his mind, losing it as he's dying. Oh my God.
Yeah, I think it was rough. And I just don't think Pat Broker had the kind of ruthless mentality you would need to take over at that point. And Dave pushed him out of the way. But then Dave was very concerned about him. So he hired 2 former cops to follow Pat Broker for the next 22 years. He paid them about $500,000 a year. And wherever Pat Broker went, these 2 guys went. And I interviewed them because they eventually were kicked out and sued Scientology. And they talked to us reporters for like a day. I got to talk to them for half a day, and then the Tampa Bay Times guys got to talk to them for half a day. And they were saying that, yes, we're all used to the idea that Scientology will do what's called a noisy investigation on people. They want you to know you're being followed. They want to freak you out. They want your family members to know that they're being watched. They were on a different kind of thing. Their mandate was, you're going to follow Pat Broker 24 hours a day, forever. but he can't know it. So, for example, this was like in the late 80s. They rented the house next to brokers without him knowing it. But they had one of them had enlisted his dad to befriend Pat Broker, and they would meet in a bar, get to know him, and had the dad give Pat Broker for one Christmas in the late 80s a cordless phone. And back then, the very first cordless phones,
The Gordon Gekko thing.
the signal between the handheld and the base unit was a radio signal. And so they had rented the house next door so they could intercept the signal, and they could listen into all of Pat Broker's calls.
That's nuts.
For years, Pat Broker was followed by these two cops and never knew it. And he eventually went to the Czech Republic for a while. And
They
then
followed him there?
They followed him there, came back to the United States. And, what became clear over time was Pat Broker had no interest in taking over Scientology or having anything to do with Scientology anymore. He was like a college English teacher somewhere,
So he had officially left the church?
He had nothing to do with it anymore. But Miscavige is so
Interesting.
paranoid that he would come back and try to make some sort of return that he has him watched it 24 hours a day.
He has the type of paranoia you hear about when you read the history books about the biggest despots.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.